opinions expressed in this show belong to the person expressing them. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of Rancher or any other entity.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Cloud Native, the show that shares news and interesting content related to Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and other nifty technology. My name is Adrian Goins, and I'm jazzed to be here with you today. Jazzed? Do I gotta be jazzed? Jazzed up? Jazzed? I'm jazzed to be here with you today. I'm just gonna leave it at that. If you're watching live, consider following or subscribing to the channel, and if you're watching a replay in the future, please also give the video a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. Join the free community site and the Discord server. Links are in the video description or scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Live chat happens in Discord with a bot that relays between YouTube and Twitch, so come hang out with us either during the show or after. And as you'll see in a moment, the chat is where the real action happens. So let's take a moment to say hello. Oh my gosh, that's a great GIF, Mac. Jazz is good. All right, thank you, Joshua. Madam Lori, hello. OFS, RestreamBot, and those of you who are watching. So Joshua, watching from YouTube, hello. Oh my gosh, Captain Kirk Jazz Hands, really? Hi, Nuno. Hi, Mac. Hi, Ian. Clint. Oh man, it's really hard to look at people's names, distracted by all the gifs. Bala, Wojtek, Cześć. Old man with a hat, nice to see you. Mladen. I think I already said hello to Ian, but if not, hello again, Ian. Ian was the first one here today. Vito. All of you, so many people. One of my... Ian, thanks for the dog. Oh my gosh. All right, so one of my projects for the 2 weeks off is... oh, hey, Devin. Thanks for showing up. I actually had a shout out for you yesterday, but I'm not sure if you were watching. Okay, I'm not reading the chat anymore. One of my projects is for the 2 weeks off at the end of the month is to add some functionality to Trufflebot where he'll actually keep track of people who are talking from the moment that he loads the content for the day. So I just have a list of people, and so nobody gets missed, and so I don't have to see all those crazy GIF things. Yeah, so I'm going to switch out of that channel so that I'm not distracted, and let's get started. Quick news, a few days ago we had Kubernetes on the show talking about OpenStack and Kubernetes, and their documentation is sparse. I've been talking with one of the maintainers. He said, yes, the documentation is sparse. We're sorry, but we use this internally. They're running it on over 500 clusters, and it's not just Kubernetes on OpenStack. It's actually also able to do OpenStack in Kubernetes. So if you were interested in the Mirantis announcement from a few days ago, but not excited by the fact that Mirantis wants to charge you for that feature, go back a couple of shows, check out Kubernetes again, and I would be interested to know what your experience is with it, since I have zero OpenStack experience and therefore am not even able to talk about it intelligently. So moving on. Today is the last day to... Apparently I can't talk intelligently at all about anything. Today is the last day to report your experience with network policy, which was our weekly challenge from last week to this week. Tomorrow I will have a new weekly challenge for you that will carry us into... That's kind of funny. It'll carry us into next week when the show's not even running. But whatever. It'll be your weekly challenge for the next 2.5 weeks. So log into the community site. I saw Mac posted that it's still in the backlog. Just make a namespace and put a network policy on something that's in it, just so you're like, okay, I understand how this works. It's a good exercise. And with that, let's get started. YouTube. The A/B test. That's what we're doing, the A/B test. The collector bots have gathered candidates. I pretend like I don't know what I'm doing. I do that for you guys. I actually do know what I'm doing. So if you're watching the show, anyway, some of you probably figure that out. The collector bots have gathered candidates for the show, and Trufflebot has scored them from 1 to 5 coffees, corresponding to a 75 to 100% probability of being interesting content. He'll post those one at a time in the A/B test channel on Discord. I'll load them up. Anyone watching live can rate them in Discord, and the final scores are shown when we move to the next item. The total rating for all shows shown on the show, I need to rewrite that piece of text, is used to rate the show itself, and in the future, these votes will be used to refine the machine learning model. So first up today, we have a lot of stuff to do today. First up today, we have something that's not actually new, but the bots did pick it up because there's chatter about the graduation of debug functionality inside of kubectl in Kubernetes 1.20. So I wanted to just remember. Coffee. Slurp. So I wanted to remind you that the Kubernetes documentation has wonderful wonderfulness about everything that you would want to know about Kubernetes. It has some of the best documentation I've ever seen for any project ever. So if you want to get started with kubectl debug, they've got all sorts of stuff. Now remember that ephemeral containers, which are the exciting part, are still alpha, but that's okay. You can use them anyway. Because what does alpha mean in Kubernetes? Alpha means put it in production. And when it crashes, pretend you didn't know. So there you go. kubectl debug. Quick reminder before we move on to the juicy bits. Oh, it's a bad week. Whoops. I just totally clicked the wrong thing. It's a bad week for FireEye. This came to me yesterday morning from Mac, but the show was already over, so it made it in for today, and since then it's popped up everywhere. So you've probably already seen this. But basically, yeah, so SolarWinds got Trojaned by somebody, and some number of versions ago, and people have been happily installing updates and happily installing a Trojan horse into their environment. The United States Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency said if you're using SolarWinds, power it the F off, because they don't actually know yet the blast radius. This comes in the wake of FireEye themselves getting owned with what is believed to be a state-sponsored attack. Okay, sure, yeah, you got owned. Whether it's state-sponsored or just really smart normal people, you still got owned. And their red team assessment tools were stolen. They don't yet know if they're just going to be used. When I first saw this, I thought that people were already starting to use them, but this is actually something different. So yeah, their stuff got jacked, and it's just, yeah. So their stock is down, because that's the most that anybody can do, since there's no actual real accountability for anything like this. And so they'll have an announcement in a couple of weeks, and their stock will be up again, and so on and so forth. But if you use SolarWinds, remember what the CISA recommendation was from a moment ago? Go do that. We have a lot of security compromisey stuff in today's show. Oh, this next one is cute. I actually reached out to this dude on Twitter yesterday because the bots picked this up. So I have a genuine interest in Blender. In fact, I bought this giant keyboard with the number pad so that I could use it with Blender, but Blender is one of those perishable skills that if I don't use it regularly, I'm going to spend all this time learning it and then forget it, and it's like really hard, and like a lot of it's an investment. So I haven't sat down and done that yet. This guy makes cookie cutters for his mom's Etsy shop. And he does these renders in Blender. Blender? Okay, so he does these renders, and they take like 2.5 hours. And he had this idea of, let's try and put that into a Kubernetes cluster. But he says, I don't know how to do that. And that was basically the end of his article. So I reached out to him because I thought that this would be a great opportunity for us to bring him into the community and see if we can help him get a Kubernetes cluster and do his Blender rendering. So I invited him to join the community. I still put this on the show. If any of you want to go and look at it and like throw a discussion comment in there and be like, dude, come hang out. I think that this would be a great use for clustering. I don't actually know if it would work, but maybe we can throw some donated smart people resources in his direction to try and get him up and running. Next up. Okay, this is totally random. Totally random. But I'm putting it on the show because I still thought it was interesting. I saw this. This is, whatever, going by, it's like stupid. It's the tweet was something about like, this is a good gift for a DevOps engineer or something. And I looked at this and I was like, oh my God, this is so totally a copyright violation. Like some dude's just basically taking the Kubernetes logo, making stickers on it, and then selling them. what I learned is that the Kubernetes logo is actually in the public domain because it's too simple. So I went and I looked up Kubernetes logo copyright. Logo copyright. I don't have this link up. I should have put this up. Kubernetes logo copyright, which brings us to the Wikimedia Commons, which says this logo image consists of only simple geometric shapes or text. It does not meet the threshold of originality needed for copyright protection and is therefore in the public domain. The first thing that I was going to talk about with this was, you remember the whole drama with Google's trademark foundation thing that they put the Istio trademarks into, and everyone was like, ah. And I said it's just about trademarks. I expected this to be a perfect justification for why we need that. Somebody's just printing Kubernetes logo stickers and selling them and not giving any of that back to the CNCF. But apparently that's totally fine. So there you go. Kubernetes logo the everythings. Interesting. Next. Dum, dum, dum. All right, y'all are probably going to hate me for this because this has nothing to do with Kubernetes, but what are we all doing while we're staying at home? We're all attending virtual conferences, and some of us are tasked with creating content. Some of us are tasked with creating content related to whatever it is that we're doing. Let's make that go away. This article, so I really, really struggle with making PowerPoint slides. I absolutely hate it. I probably decline speaking at events mostly because I can't make a slide deck to save my life. I can deliver information, but I can't make slides. So this is how to make infographics. And this applies directly to any content that you might have to create. Now, granted, Visme has a tool that they want to sell you, but you can use it for free too, but they have like a advanced tier or whatever, it costs money. It's not that much money. But even if you don't use their tool, if you have to make any type of visual content, this gives you really good, actionable, simple information on how to take written content, like this stuff that's over here on the left, and turn it into visual content. Visual content, whether it's an infographic, a PowerPoint slide, an anything, is not only what people will remember, but it's what people will share. So if you are somebody who's watching that has a YouTube channel or an Instagram feed or an anything, and you're producing stuff that you would like people to also share, this kind of stuff will help you. Otherwise, it's out there because we're all technology nerds, and not all of us are blessed with the creativity skills that WifeBot, for example, has. So I thought this was really cool, and it's the kind of thing that will help me, and therefore I'm sharing it with you. Oh, and you all liked it. That's nice. I was worried about that one. Wow, I'm like screaming through content this morning. Whew. Might run out of content. Mark Abrams from Rancher published a blog article a few days ago on how to use NVIDIA GPUs in Rancher Kubernetes clusters. This, of course, yes, I work for Rancher, but there's some stuff in here that I think is worth calling out. One thing that I thought was really interesting is that he points out that the Rancher UI is actually just a client for the Rancher API. Everything that Rancher does is API driven, and there are clients for other languages, for Go, for Python, you can do stuff with Terraform. So anything that, like if you don't want to use the UI, but you still want to use Rancher's infrastructure deployment or other Kubernetes management functionality, you can do all of it programmatically over REST. Nifty. And so he talks about how to launch clusters and how to install the GPU operator. See, Mark could benefit from that infographic thing from before because that was totally done with a mouse. So how to launch them, how to enable the GPU operator, and then the next thing that it talks about that I think is worth also reminding people about is this thing called node feature discovery. So the GPU operator installs it, but you can install it yourself into any Kubernetes cluster that you have. Node feature discovery figures out the features of the node and makes that available as labels on the nodes. So you can then use those labels to target your workloads. And it's not just for things like GPU, but it can be things like, disk type, CPU, RAM, like all sorts of whatever kinds of things you want. Yeah, so there you go. So here's an article on deploying clusters with GPU support using Rancher, deploying the GPU operator, enabling it with node feature discovery, and then he will have a follow-up article that talks about how to actually do this down on the edge. Because, as he points out in the very beginning of the article, GPU functionality has different purposes in different places. In a data center, you might be using it to create machine learning models, but in an edge environment, you might be using it for ML inference or doing actual data analysis. So there's still value in having GPU processing power out at the edge. Thank you, Mark. We talk about chaos engineering. We haven't actually talked about it all that much recently, but when it shows up, Litmus has some stuff. We've had Chaos Mesh on here. We had that guy that was creating those really cool blogs comparing all of the different things, and we've had Gremlin on a couple of times. Gremlin is having a boot camp on December 17th. That's 2 days from now, and since it's almost Christmas, none of us are working anyway. If you're curious about chaos engineering in Kubernetes and how you might get started using it, maybe you can do this on Friday. So this is from Gremlin. It'll talk about the benefits of using chaos engineering. Of course, it's going to talk about Gremlin, but chaos engineering as a concept can be applied universally. So even if you don't want to use Gremlin, but you're interested in chaos engineering, there's value in going to this. So please go, tell them I said what's up. Next. Oh, okay, this one's fun. I think as we get closer to the end of the week, since I'm going to be taking a couple of weeks off, I'm going to put more like fun stuff on the show as it comes up. This guy. All right, so remember, universal unconsciousness of the universal unconscious of the internet. Like things bubble up and like I see trends and patterns because I stare at this stuff all day long. A few days ago, I had the article about hacking your car. And I talked not hacking like breaking into your car, but using that little hexagonal rhombus whatever port thing. It's not hexagonal. It's a trapezoidal port, geometric shapes in your car to interface with the actual computer of your car. And there was a thing on how you can use tools to do that. Well, this person used that port with a Raspberry Pi and a display in his 97 Honda Civic or something like that. To create this display, which is a terrible photo, that shows engine data. So miles per hour, RPM, gas, how much gas he has, I don't know how to say that intelligently, temperature, and battery voltage. And then he also plugged it into a flash drive or something, some storage thing that has MP3s on it so that he can play music on it. But he did it all retro style, where even though it's playing from a folder, the folder is presented as a disc. So it's like he's in a 97 Honda, so it's like it's a CD. This was on Reddit a few days ago, 3 days ago. He posted it. Everyone's going crazy about it. It's definitely got some issues. He says he needs to clean it up before he shares it. But then he also shared this other article where somebody else did a similar thing in a Honda S2000, but he embedded it down in the radio chassis, which makes a lot of sense because you don't have a radio anymore. And it looks like he did it in a way that like it folds down. So probably it folds up and it just looks like it's a crappy radio. So this is nice, right? So yeah, these are like super nerdy, awesome things to do with a Raspberry Pi. And he's like pulling out actual diagnostic data from the car. That's pretty cool. So these two are out there. Fun, neat projects for fun neatness. Okay. I have some COVID stuff on today as well because we're seeing more technology things related to COVID. So some Italian company has started making wearables. The only thing that could make this better is if it was also like in the blockchain. If it's a blockchain wearable, then it would be great. But they basically made a device that their employees can wear that screams if the devices get too close to each other, so that it makes a really annoying sound if you're within 6 feet of another device, so that the employees stay the heck away from each other. Personally, I just want one of those all of the time. I want a thing that makes annoying noises when anybody gets too close to me, so that they stay away from me. Um, it does some other stuff with like tracking. It's got an ID, so they can figure out, in the event of I was gonna say a compromise. If somebody turns out to be sick, they can figure out the contact tracing within the office space. So this is the first one I've seen that's a wearable. Though in the past couple of weeks, I've also seen sensors that are Bluetooth that are being deployed in office environments to keep track of people's devices, basically doing contact tracing and proximity awareness, but within an organization. And I like that idea better than it being done by the government or a private company for the government, where it collects the data on everybody. Taking responsibility for the areas of space that you control, you being an organization, while still trying to keep your employees healthy, I think is the right way to go. But that's counterbalanced by the fact that we're just going to see a whole bunch of crap technology come out in the next year that's going to work, and some of it won't, and so on and so forth. They say here that Fitbit and Oura have teamed up with universities to develop an algorithm for their devices to detect the coronavirus before a user shows physical symptoms. That makes sense for Fitbit. I don't think that makes sense for Oura. Oura makes or Aura, whatever. They make the like smart ring thing. This is not one. This is a tungsten carbide ring. It's my wedding ring. They make the smart ring, and the thing costs like $500. So if you can afford an Aura ring, like whatever, it's not a large enough portion of the population that I think it's worth investing in that. So yeah, there you go. Wearable technology for social distancing. Good, good. Oh, Trufflebot, you are on it. This next one is also COVID related and also, I think, kind of interesting. Siemens makes products, and they created. So all of this is for kids. Stage three. Stage three is like 7 to 11 or something like that. So they have these apps that are designed to, or games designed to help kids learn about science. And they have one now that was supposed to come up here. I don't know why there we go. So they have one now about smart buildings. And they have a game. This was just announced yesterday. Oh, this is not gonna. Oh, does it actually load now? It didn't load before. Oh, cool. So I can play it because the browser is bigger. So they have this game where, remember, this is designed for kids. Where, first of all, good job, Siemens. It talks about the Siemens products that can help reduce the spread of COVID. But the game is that you're in a mall and you have to keep track of situations. So you'll get like a little alert, and then you have to figure out which Siemens product. Okay, I have an alert. The restaurant is getting busy. We need to find something that helps kill off pathogens. I have 10 seconds to deploy an ionization solution. But at the same time, periodically, people will come in who don't have a mask. And you have to stay aware of that by monitoring so that you can, so that you can, I'm going to fail this because I'm going to stop playing and start talking. So that you can issue them a mask to help reduce the spread of COVID. Whether you believe in masks or whether you believe in whatever you believe in, I think that educating children about stuff related to proper hygiene and things is valuable. So if your kids are asking questions about COVID, uh, check this out. Plus, they have other cool science games. Even if you don't like this, they have other cool science games that you can play with your kids to help them learn about science. I actually played it with WifeBot a little bit this morning. It's really hard. It's really, like it moves really fast. And if you don't like, if somebody comes into your mall and they forgot their mask and you don't issue them a mask fast enough, then your mall gets shut down. I bring this next one on because Sophos has announced 4 new open artificial intelligence developments related to scanning and detecting vulnerabilities. The big problem with vulnerabilities, as we saw with the stuff that I had on yesterday, with the browser malware that has like 165 million different permutations, is you can't do signature based stuff. They call out that today's cacophony of opaque or guarded claims about the capabilities or efficacy of AI in solutions makes it difficult to impossible for buyers to understand or validate these claims. That's called washing. So somebody's going to be like, our product is a machine learning model. Like, the show content is actually curated by a machine learning model. I can show it to you. But if you're buying something that's just, got a label on a box that says, it's got AI inside. It reminds me of when I went to Best Buy back in the mid 90s and I interrupted one of the sales guys who was telling this woman that the printer was internet ready. This is like not like had a network port, like it was internet ready. Anything you can download from the internet, you can print on the printer. We're gonna see that. So Sophos said, in order to counteract that, we are going to make our AI solutions open so that they can be poked at and analyzed and discussed. Not discussed like disgusting, but talked about. So they have 4 items. So the first one we're not going to talk about because I'm running out of time. Impersonation protection, so defending against email spear phishing attacks. That seems pretty easy. Epidemiology-inspired statistical models for estimating the prevalence of malware infections in total. Okay, cool. And then automatic signature generation. So they will have an AI system that's able to automatically generate signatures. This has been a problem in the past because machine-generated signatures underperform human-generated signatures, but human-generated signatures are a process that is laborious and time-intensive and causes people to quit their jobs. So they have a new model that says it takes an AI approach, it compiles full-fledged industrial-strength machine learning models, blah, 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 and has proven to be far more effective than previous approaches. Okay, great. And they've open sourced it. Super cool. In episode 87, what's today's episode? Today's 80, no, today's 90, 90? 91. Today's 91, so 4 episodes ago. It didn't make it on the show, but in the tweets, I pointed to an article that talked about GDPR requiring GDPR requiring that companies explain their technology in a way that a normal person can understand it. And how that not only doesn't really apply to AI, because like try and explain a machine learning model to your mom, but it also runs the risk of allowing bad actors to counteract the AI that's actually doing the thing. This is a perfect example of why that level of openness, visibility that the GDPR requires may actually be bad. If Sophos is required to explain in tremendous detail how their stuff works, then it allows bad actors to generate bad content that circumvents the AI stuff. So this is going to be an area that I'm going to see that I imagine we're going to see a lot of struggle and back and forth in the future between legislation that wants to protect people and companies that want to protect their IP, and then those companies that want to help people, as well as those companies who just want to steal all your data. It's a brave new world. Like, it's no longer even the wild, wild west. It's like the wild, wild, I don't even know. But still, good job, Sophos. That's it for the A/B test today, giving us, yay, an average rating of 4 coffees for today's show. And now that takes us to the next section before we run out of time. Today's tool of the day. It's called Kubenurse. It's a cute name. Kubenurse is a little service that monitors all network connections in a Kubernetes cluster and exports the taken metrics as a Prometheus endpoint. That's not exactly accurate. It doesn't monitor all network connections. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, it'll tell me all kinds of interesting things about my network stuff. But not exactly. It's a daemon set that, where's their little diagram? There we go. It's a daemon set that every 5 seconds, or upon a particular URL being pinged, it runs a series of checks that check the kubelet, checks ingress, checks internal DNS, checks the API server, and checks upstream DNS. And then it runs these checks. Obviously, kubelet is local, but then each of the Kubenurse pods run the checks against all of the other endpoints to identify latency issues that could be like isolated to a certain node, a certain pod, a certain something, conditional stuff. And then it publishes all of this as a scrapable endpoint for Prometheus. So just run this. It appears to make every effort to be lightweight and non-intrusive, and then you get information. And when you see a deviation like that spike right there, you can go and be like, wow, what the heck is that? Kubnurse, taking your cluster's temperature every 5 seconds. Hopefully in a nice way. With that, press the wrong button. Oh, wow. Hey, I'm back. Press the wrong button. With that, that's the right button. I'm so sorry. That'll be fun to edit out. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching today's show. That's all that I have for you today. Links to everything I talk about on the show go up in the free community site at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Come join us. Community members get early access to the links, video replay, and other exclusive content. It's free to join. Community is growing every day. If you have something you'd like me to consider for the show, post it in the community site, mention me in the post, or ping me on Discord or Twitter. Many of you are doing that. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Keep learning. I will see you in the next show. Stay caffeinative and watch out, because for the first time in today's show, here comes the outro.